Hey Eric, wanted to give you some quick feedback. Um, so first, let's go through really quick and look at the acting or some of the physical shots. I will say that I'm doing this by video so I can get a lot of words out really quick because otherwise I'd be typing for days. Because it's easier for me to communicate verbally. The I'm going to give you feedback in somewhat of a harsh way because everybody has that reel that they wish someone would have just torn apart for them and told them why they wouldn't, what problems they had with it. So how I'm going to address this is if I received this as an application, what notes I would have made and what I wouldn't have liked, what would have kept it from becoming an interview. Okay, so first, the one I like the best is your walk. I think your walk looks really good. And your physical stuff in here overall is pretty good. The only thing in the walk that I think needs addressing is I still feel like these hands feel a little too even, a little too generic. Maybe like how I can see like the same spacing between each finger. That sort of thing really just makes it feel like you haven't given it that extra push away from the bind pose. And it just feels like that you didn't pull it too far away from how it was rigged. So maybe even just get those two pinkies a little closer together, just something like that to keep these from feeling like the way I assumed it was modeled. Like that just feels very like hard to hold my hand like that naturally. You know, like they all the fingers have the same bend, and usually pinkies bend a little bit more than these fingers bend a little bit more than the index fingers. So just kind of think of those things. Otherwise, though, it looks pretty good. Actually, it's my favorite. I think it's got some good weight on it. The run, for the most part, the physicality feels pretty decent. I feel like the hips are just a clean sine wave, like it's just a smooth up and down, and so I'm not feeling the jar of this impact when he hits the ground. So maybe increase that just a little bit, but even more, I'm not feeling the push off right here, and I think it's because his leg never goes straight. It just kind of bicycles under him, and like somewhere around this frame here, that leg should almost be completely straight, pushing off the ground, because that's what you're doing. You're doing these little hops over and over again, is what a run is, and I'm not getting that energy pushing him up there. I think just adding that little bit would make it feel better. I think it also feels a little slow, but I would have to see it with the correct way before I knew for sure. Okay, so you have three acting pieces here, and I'm going to address them starting with the physicality issues, because the first physicality issue is more like a posing issue of that this guy just never stops moving. Like he never hits a pose and holds it. I mean, I think that you have like 4 key poses in there. You probably have this, maybe 5, this, and then this. And he never hits one of those. He's always moving through them and continuing to move around. So like hitting them and holding it a little bit is really what you need. You need to be able to stop there and his hand just like ease into this area and just stop moving for a bit. But instead it just feels like his arm is always moving everywhere. And the result of that, it just seems like you haven't touched those curves. It seems like you haven't paid any attention to those details. And that's something that, like, that's just another pass. Going in there and stopping that hand, cleaning up those arcs, and making the motions that happen feel like he's in a pose, he goes to that pose, and like, animation is hitting clean poses and having nice transitions between these poses. He's not hitting the poses, he's constantly transitioning. So that's the... But I think some of the acting choices on this are pretty good. I'm going to talk about this one, because this one's problem, you have some decent acting poses here. No, actually, let me talk about this one first. I think your acting choices in this they're similar to the one with a guy cut in half, but you don't. Ed Hooks, who wrote Acting for Animators, said, "Don't have a character do something without a reason. Acting is reacting to a situation." So he's talking to an invisible person. I get that. Like this person will be there someday or whatever. Um, but he starts off in the process of sitting down, which is an action, and I think of this as a reaction. He's sat down so he can teach this guy a lesson, like whatever it is. Um, and then he immediately abandons that and just stands up and for some reason walks across the room. And that is, I have no idea why he does that. Like that just feels like a completely foreign idea of why he would do that. Why does he go over here? I mean, I guess it's so he can show off this like pose, but it's not a strong enough pose to validate taking like 5 steps to the other side of the room. I mean, he could do that same thing sitting down, and I actually think that you're getting some nice poses in here with this. So I mean, those are things to consider. Like, why would he do that? Like, if you sat down to act this out, did you do that? Like, did you sit down, hold it for 3 seconds, and then walk across the room before saying this pose? Because that's how you would decide on the acting on this. Is you would sit down, you would put a camera on yourself, you would have this audio playing in the background in a loop, and then you would act it out. Like, I would say no less than 20 times. But usually when I'm acting out a shot, it's more like I just act it out repeatedly over and over for about 20 minutes. And somewhere in that 20 minutes, you're going to fall into a state of natural, where you are delivering lines in a way that makes sense for you to deliver them, and you're going to not overthink the words. So here's how you make some interesting acting choices as well, because one of the things that I think is a little harmful on this is he says, let's see, he has 3 indicators there. He said, when I was little like you, I dreamed of the stars. So there are 3 nouns in there. I, you, and stars. And for each of those nouns, he points at something. He points at himself. When I was little like you. When I was little like you, I dreamed of the stars. I guess dream is a noun too. You know what I'm saying. Well, no, it's not. It's a verb. Anyway, so that's a problem, because if you think of what this guy is trying to communicate to the person who's not here, is that I have dreams like you. Okay, and he's not saying, like, he's not trying to communicate these things as if this kid were, or this person were 2 years old. Like, he knows who he is. He knows who I am. He knows what stars are. So don't act out the words he says. Act out the words he means. So maybe what he's saying is, dude, don't let it get you down. I've been through this too. Okay, so maybe that's really what he's saying. That's the subtext of the line. And that's up to you to decide based off of the scene and how you want to act this out. But making your acting choices off of the words he says usually leads to kind of stilted filling acting. Like, if I say my head hurts, I rarely point to my head so someone knows where it is. If I say my head hurts, I usually have a reason for saying that. It may be that I don't want to go to the store with you. My head hurts. And what I'm really saying there is, could you just go to the store without me? Like, that may be what I'm trying to say. And for that could just be like a throwaway, like, waving it off gesture. Could you just go to the store without me? Like, so consider those things when you're, that is what a lot of actors say when they say they're getting into character. They're thinking about what is in the character's head, and then they're delivering the line based off of that motivation of what's in the character's head. So right now he's saying, when I was little like you, I dreamed of the stars. That could be saying, look, I know how hard it is to achieve your dreams. Don't get discouraged, because look at me. I'm successful, and I did it. So that could be what this line is really trying to say. Act it out to that. And I think that having him sit down, that feels like a good start for that. I'm sitting down to have this, heart to heart with you. Him pointing actually isn't resolving anything. Like I could sit down and record some video of me acting this out 1,000 different ways, but sit down and think about this and act it out over and over and over and over again as naturally as you can. Like, how would you say this if you were in this situation? Um, and like walking across the room does not feel like I'm here to comfort you and tell you about how your life can get better, even if it is saying what he is saying, which is a very like boastful thing. So I think it's safe to say I live my dream. I own the stage. Um, like I don't know. There's all of this still feels like it could be acted to a different subtext. Like it's not like look at me, I am great and successful. Like there's something in there that you need to find that subtext. But more than anything, I just don't see a reason for him to walk across the room. Um, the first one is another. One more thing I'd like to address on this is some of the framing. Like this just feels. Um, you know how you can draw a picture of a lamp or something like that, and if it's got space all around it, it just feels like a picture of an object. But if you cut in close to it and you frame it and composite it in a pretty way, it feels more intimate and it feels more interesting. Right now, like literally probably 80% of the screen um, is not useful to me. None of this. Like there's just really a lot of wasted space in here that I think you could crop in on this and get a really much more interesting composition that fulfills your needs even better. I think there's I mean, even on this, even after he walks away, he's a guy standing in the middle of the scene. That's something that's usually resolved in layout as one of the first steps, but that's an issue that this is happening and making it feel very distant. Similar thing going on here. You got this split down the middle, character on this side, a character on this side. They're both vertical, and this isn't very appealing in that way. So one of the things um, before I get to that, so the composition isn't very appealing, but I think more importantly is the situation does not lend itself to anything to a scenario that makes sense. So I spend the first half of watching this shot trying to figure out how that guy stuck to the wall. Did he operate on him while he was hanging from the wall? Like, I don't understand what's going on there. And who is this guy talking to? It's like he's presenting it to a studio audience or something. Um, so your acting choices are not clear and easy to find because of that. Some of your gestures are actually really well animated, but they're lost in the fact that the scene is kind of confusing. Like this arm gesture is really nice that he does here, um, but it's kind of lost in that fact that like I said, that the scene's confusing. Like another example of how this could have been composed is something like this. You got the character in the background, sort of framed in by this by the character that's cut in half's torso. And maybe gesturing at it with a pen or even with his finger or whatever, and obviously talking to somebody who's on the other side, as if this were a coroner or somebody doing an autopsy or something like that. So at the very first frame, I could see this and know the situation, and it's like if if um, if you can give all of those context clues immediately in the first shot to where the person can realize the scene and understand what this character is doing in the scene, then you've taken all of that front end work off of the viewer, and the viewer can just from there sort of start focusing in on what the animation is about and watching your animation, watching the acting. Like right now, I'm spending half of this just figuring out that this guy's a doctor and this guy is a patient who's defying gravity. Like, and so like I don't even pay attention to the animation as a viewer for the first little bit. So I know it seems kind of harsh, but I feel like that's why it's hard to gauge this animation, because I lose it. It's similar to like Sorry, I accidentally paused. It's similar to animation that is done on a model that is not modeled well. Is it's hard to see what the acting, what is happening in the animation if the character doesn't look right. So that's kind of some of the options there. If you have any acting questions or animation questions, feel free to give me a call. But I would say start on a new piece, and I'll write the rest down in text. I'll talk to you soon.